All right, you're here to talk about solar. So, if you're new here, I am Jamie, and this is our family's remote cabin in Alaska. We split our time between Washington and Alaska, mostly Washington, but this is kind of our getaway spot. So, today I'm going to walk you through our solar setup, our inverters and chargers, our batteries, the whole thing, kind of top to bottom. I just kind of want to start with this isn't a sponsored video by any means. I wasn't given any of this product. I paid full retail for all the products you see. I'm not influenced by any means, but to have true transparency, I do own an audio video business in Washington. And recently we did get set up as a Battleborn dealer. I bought all the batteries in here for full price before I was a dealer. I have not become a dealer until probably 2 months ago, and I have done this system over the last 5 years. I also don't want to get into, I could have done it cheaper, you should have used this, why didn't you do 24 volt, why didn't you do 48 volt? I'm just going to show you my system. I know showing electrical stuff online is like trying to debate with, your teenage daughter. Nobody wins. So, I just want to show you guys what I did, tell you why I did it, and it works for us. So I guess I should mention that when I say remote cabin, I mean remote cabin. Like there are no roads that come here. We have to cross a lake to get to the cabin. We got to use ATV to get in here during the summer months, and then in the winter it's snow machine only to get in here. So there's no utilities. We are fortunate enough to have a septic system installed, so we have all the amenities. We do have a bathroom, we have running water. We also have an outhouse that we try and use most of the time just because septic system here, there's no way to have a pump truck come here and pump it out. So you don't want to overuse things here. We do have a well. So our system does run the well. That's one of the main draws on the system. And I'll show you kind of how we've worked around to make that work. But we'll go through, we'll start with all the solar panels. I will mention that when we did buy the place, we bought the place in 2020, and it did have a smaller inverter in it, an older one. It did have some lead acid 6-volt batteries that were wired to 12 volt, kind of like your golf cart style batteries. And they were somewhat, there's a bank of like 12 of them, and it was set up two different ways. There was one bank that was set up to run just the 12 volt lighting and 12 volt stuff in the cabin, and then the other bank of 6 was wired to the inverter, and that would run the 110 stuff. One of the banks was an older set of batteries, probably 6-7 years old, and then the other bank of 6 batteries, those were fairly new. I think when we bought it in 2020 they were like from 2018 or 2019, but they were separated, so they weren't tied together. So that's a good thing. Some of the things that I was trying to achieve by redoing it all is I wanted to redo it now so that I don't really have to worry about it in the future for the next 10 years, 15 years, whatever, 20 years. I'd like to just get a nice solid system in there, not have to worry about it the whole time we're here. And then maybe down the road, if this place goes to our kids or whatever, they can upgrade or do whatever when it's theirs. So when we originally purchased the property, there were 2 arrays, kind of 3 arrays of solar. There was one that's mounted on the top of the cabin, which you could maybe see up there now in this picture. That one there, those panels, I believe there's 4 50-watt panels up there. So older panels. I think the gentleman that we bought this from, he built this cabin in the 90s. I don't know when he put those solar panels up there, but they're definitely older panels. They are on an articulating arm that moves with the sun. However, within the last year or so, something broke up there, and it's not easy to get to, and the arm is no longer functioning. And it actually, I think a windstorm got it, and the actuator pushed through one of the solar panels. That can't be good. Down the road, I think I am going to replace those. That's the only part of the system that I have not replaced. Also, on the shop area back here behind me, there are 2 spots there where there were another array of, I think, what was it, 50 watt, 4 50-watt panels on the bottom and 4 50-watt panels on the top. So what's that, 400 watts that was there. I pulled those down and I replaced those with some bifacial panels. Those bifacial panels on the shop there, those are, I believe they're about 450 watts on the front side of the panel, maybe 4 to 450 on the front side. And then they have the back side, that's the bifacial part. So it can pick up some power from the backside also, which works good because there is a hill behind it. So sometimes you'll get reflection off the snow, so they say. And then I think it gets upwards of, like, the most it can produce is 500 watts per panel. And I do see really good output out of those two. So those two on the shop, those are tied to one of the solar controllers that's in the cabin itself. So that's on a separate solar controller. And then the ones on the top of the cabin are on a smaller solar controller. They're like running off the Victron. I think it's the 30/100. It's like 30 amps and up to 100 volts. And then on the side of the cabin here, you'll see that I've added some panels here. So we started about 2 years ago. I added 3 of these panels right here. And those are 395 or 390 watts per panel. So I did 3 of those, and then I tied those together to another solar controller. And then recently this summer I added 3 more. So in total, we have 6 390 watt panels here. We have 200 watts on the top of the cabin of old panels, which one of them is kind of busted, so we're probably only going to get 150 up there. And then we also have 2 500 watt panels on top of the shop. And they are running, all that's running through 4 separate solar controllers. So the solar controllers are all Victron. I have 3 of the, I think it's 85 by 150. And then I have 1 of the smaller 30 by 100. I'm sure there would have been a better way to do it. You're going to say, well, why didn't you get one big solar controller? Well, I did it in stages, and I probably should have done it all at once, but sometimes you don't have the money to do it all at once, or the time for that matter. We'll wait for this plane to fly over, middle of nowhere, but you get interrupted by a plane. Not a person in sight for miles and miles, but the other reason is it's not easy to get these panels in here and equipment. It's a chore. So, trying to do it all at once, money-wise, time to get everything in. Maybe it would have been easier to do it all at once. But, I'll drop a little video in here just to show you what it takes to get stuff into this cabin here. But anyway, I'm happy with the way that the panels turned out. My goal was I want to be able to run the cabin mainly off solar if possible, but I also want to be able to have to run the generator every once in a while, because we do have a couple generators out here and I like to run a little bit of fuel through them every once in a while. And if you have so much solar, then your generators never get used. They might gum up, bad gas, things like that. So, I don't want too much, but I just kind of want to be right there on the cusp. So when we do visit up here, maybe I run the generator for an hour or 2, 3, 4, maybe even I run a full tank of fuel through it, just to get some time on it and to get some hours on it. So I think we found pretty much the sweet spot with the amount of solar that we have versus, the amount of power that we use. In the summertime, I think we have an abundance of power with the solar. And I've been here now for this trip. This is, I think, my 6th or 7th day here. I haven't had to run the generator at all. We've had some sunny days. I've been doing work, I've been using table saws, things like that for projects. We're running the well to fill it, just run everything like normal. We do use a propane stove for cooking, and but our refrigerator is electric. It's not propane. When we purchased this place, the main generator was in a shack behind me that's also, it doubles as outhouse right next to it. There's a 3,000 watt Honda generator in there, and that's what he used probably 90% of the time for the cabin. And the reason he used that 3000 is the battery charger that he had was a smaller one. So he didn't really need to run a larger generator to charge his batteries, because the charger that he had was only a certain size and only needed the 3,000 watt generator. We also, when we bought the place, we got a 6,500 watt Honda, and he would use that in the shop when he would do larger projects like there's a welder, things like that, like that needed 220. He would use that, but it didn't make sense to use that to charge his batteries because it was just too much power. My thinking was I want to have enough power to expand on things if I need to. If I want to add stuff, I don't really want to be restricted. I swapped out his older inverter and older charger for one of the Victron 12 volt 3000 watt Multiplus, and that worked great. The only issue was, and this was an issue also with his system, is when you turned on the well pump and you had other things going, let's say, the kids were making something in the microwave, washers going or something like that, it would trip a breaker because a 3000 watt wasn't quite enough. The well pump will pull, I think upon startup, like 1500 watts, maybe a little bit more. And then it's about 900 watts while it's running. And then, you have your microwave, that's 1500 watts, and then something else, somebody's running a hair dryer. I mean, these are all first world problems, but I didn't want to have to worry about that. So we ran it with just the single 3000 watt for about a year or so. And then from there, I added another of the same Victron Multiplus 12 volt 3000 watt. And I set those up as split phase. So if I wanted to run something 220 volt, I could. Like there's a welder in the shop. I have yet to use it, but I could use that now if I wanted to do welding with those two inverters without running the generator. So once I added the second inverter, I was able to put more power in it to charge faster. So I was able to utilize the 6500 watt Honda to charge the batteries faster with the two inverters, because now I can use both of them to charge the batteries. So now I've abandoned the 3000 watt generator shack. Nothing really gets ran in the generator shack anymore. One reason for that is I'm trying to utilize all the energy possible, meaning the heat created from the generator, the heat created from the inverters, chargers, all that. So how can we recycle everything? The 6500 is in the shop now, but like in the wintertime, when you don't have a lot of solar, you're going to have to run that generator more. So we have the generator inside that shop, and then it is vented out the side of the shop for the exhaust. So in the wintertime, when I go to charge the batteries, I'll kind of plan accordingly. I'll be like, okay, well, I want to do a couple things in the shop today. Today might be a good day to run the generator. Start the generator, charges the batteries. Also heats the shop. I mean, it'll heat that shop good enough that you need no other heater on in there. And if you do want to stay out there longer, it's nice to use the generator to kind of preheat the whole thing. And then you can just use the little propane wall heaters to kind of keep it a little bit toasty in there if you're doing a project. Let's see, what's next? All right, one thing I did forget to mention is on the shop over here, we also have a wind turbine. And the wind turbine was here when we purchased the place. And I may have screwed up because I didn't know anything about wind turbines when we purchased this. So I was doing a bunch of the rewiring and I disconnected the wind turbine. And I did not hook it up for a while. And then we left. And this was in the winter when it's super windy. And so I have a couple neighbors on the lake, and they're like, yeah, your wind turbine sounds like the Predator when we're out there. We can hear it from our cabins. And so after further research, I'm dumb. I didn't do enough research. I found out that if you do not have power connected to a wind turbine, it free spins. And that can mess some things up in there. Long story long, I hooked it back up. I ran that through a Victron shunt. I have the shunt on there to see how much power is going in and out of the wind turbine. And then it also, passes power through it so that it's not free spinning all the time. And it seems like I'm not getting much power out of it at all. It seems like when I was here this time was the first time that there was some wind, maybe over 20 miles an hour. And I'd maybe get 100 watts out of it for like a split second, and then it would just die. So I don't know if it's worth my time. I've seen these Air 30s, Air 40s or whatever. They're like $1,000, $1,100. That would probably bolt right on there to try that, because we do get a lot of wind in the winter. But if anybody has any experience with those, drop it in the comments or whatever. That'd be sweet. So I know if it's worth my money to try and swap this out, and if a wind turbine can just go, if it just goes completely bad, or if maybe I heard it just a little bit, and I don't know how it all works in there, which is funny. My wife works for a utility company. You'd think I could find this information out if I asked, but just let me know if you think maybe it's worth my time and money to swap that out for a new one. So you'll see I've got the Lynx distribution system. So we've got the main power wires coming in from the batteries, which we'll get to the batteries here in a little bit. I've got 2 0-gauge ground wires and 2 0-gauge power wires that come into the lynx distribution, the power input one. And then from there, it flows down through it. And then I have 2 of the distributions, which have, I believe, 4 fuses each. So from there, I have all the outputs to all the solar charge controllers. I have an output that goes to my 12-volt system. I have 2 0-gauges, 1 to each of the inverters, because the inverters are only like 1.5 feet away. So I have 0-gauge power and ground going to those. And then I have 1 more that must go to something that I can't remember. And I will show in the comment, or like maybe on the screen here, what that is when we go inside. All right, from there, what do we got? We got batteries. Talk about the batteries. And everybody's going to yell at me about the batteries. Why did you buy Battleborn? They cost so much money. They're overpriced. You could have got it cheaper. Why didn't you do 24 volt? Why didn't you do 48 volt? Whatever. I bought them. All right. They're expensive. They work. Maybe I drank the Kool-Aid and I bought the Battleborns because I seen them advertised everywhere and everybody's saying they're good. But I also have them in an RV at home. I've never had a problem with them. So, it is what it is. I could have done it cheaper. I could have done it different. I didn't. So, like it or not, that's what I got. You can buy whatever you want. Like I said, I'm not sponsored. I'm not trying to sell you Battleborn. I'm not trying to sell you Victron. I'm not trying to sell you any of this stuff. I'm just telling you what we got. Okay, so for the batteries, Battleborn. I've got 6 of the Battleborn GC3s. They're Game Changer 3, they call them. They are not heated. When I purchased them, they did not have the heated option. Do I wish I would have got the heated? Maybe. We'll get into that in a minute. Those are 270 amp hours a piece. They're 12 volt. I left them in 12 volt. I didn't series them or whatever to get 24 volt, 48 volt. Didn't do any of that. I wanted to keep it somewhat simple. For my life, I have done 12 volt audio in cars. I am very familiar with 12 volt. I know how it works. I know I can't blow nothing up too easily with 12 volt. It's just easier for me. And a ton of lighting and things like that in the cabin is 12 volt also. And I've kept it 12 volt because I want that ability to have lights if my inverter goes bad. So we have it kind of split throughout the cabin. We have some 12 volt lighting. We have some 110 lighting. So let's say the batteries go bad. I could still hit the generator and have 120 volt for some other kind of lighting in the cabin if we need it. I know these things will probably never happen, but in Alaska, the rule is to have a backup for a backup. So our third backup would be we have propane lights in there also. So that would give you some light and a little bit of heat. So the way I have these batteries wired up, they're just all paralleled. I have a 0-gauge wire going from one to the other. And then when I come out of the batteries, I have 2 0-gauge. They're the exact same length so that there's no resistance difference. So it's not trying to grab the shortest path from one wire versus the other. It comes out of the battery. It goes to a 400 amp fuse and a 400 amp fuse. Out of there, it goes into 2 separate on-off switches. I know it'd probably be better if it was one, since it's kind of one system, but those switches are only rated for like 300 amps or something like that of constant current. So I have 2 of them. And then out of those, it goes to the lynx input system. Same thing, ground side, 2 0-gauge wires, cut specifically exactly the same length as each other. So you can see I got all the batteries under the landing for the steps and kind of in a little closet area that I built. That's going to be storage. And when we first bought this cabin, there was no stairs that went upstairs. There was just a ladder that kind of went up through the floor. And the older we got, we're still able to get up and down those stairs if we need, or up and down the ladder if we needed to. But we're like, some stairs would be pretty sweet, because in the middle of the night, if you gotta go to the bathroom, going down a ladder is not very fun. So we cut off part of the landing, made some stairs. That's still a work in progress. And then it also made it so I could have some storage. The batteries before, when we bought the place, were actually upstairs in one of the side cubbies. And those batteries were so heavy. There's 12 of them up there. And I think they were like, I want to say they were like 110 pounds a piece or something. They were heavy, like heavy. Like he had a come along thing hooked up to get them upstairs. And I carried all those suckers downstairs to get them out of there without using that thing because I'm a dumb. But anyway, I mean, I think I did the math, and there was like, I don't know, almost 1,800 pounds of batteries up in that one area. And I was like, I do not really want this upstairs. And you could tell that they're flooded acid batteries. You could tell actually there's some stains where one of them must have bubbled over at one point because it got all over the plywood and stuff. So anyway, I wanted to get those downstairs so they're easy accessible, easy to take in and out if I ever needed to. And this wasn't taking up storage space because that storage, actually where the batteries were, is we redid some things and put our water tank in there. I feel like I've been talking forever. Good Lord. I built the landing thinking, hey, I'm going to put these batteries underneath there. So I spaced it off the floor accordingly, did the stairs accordingly. And then I built a little platform. Our floor for the cabin is built with plywood, 2-inch foam, and then plywood. He did it right when he did it. And then what I did is I did another 1-inch foam, and then I did plywood above that, and then I mounted the batteries to that. So, there's 3 inches of foam, whatever. And my goal is I'm going to kind of box that off and put some insulation around it so it stays warmer in there. And you can see how the inverters they have fans on the bottom, and the fans go down into the area where the batteries are. So my thinking is once I get this little room done, I can shut that door. And then in the winter time, when we're not here, I leave certain things on. The heat generated from that type of stuff will keep those batteries warm enough that they can accept a charge, from the solar controller. Because if they get too low a voltage, they will shut off and they will not accept a charge. That's just a drawback of a lithium battery. And that's, some people say, oh, you're dumb to use that in Alaska. Why would you use that? Well, I already told you, I'm not the smartest guy around. This is just what I'm doing. So last winter, for example, I didn't have the room done. I left some things on. Everything went dead, got too cold, and the batteries just went to complete shutdown mode, not going to accept a charge. And then I had something else on it that kept drawing it down. Boom, it hit the BMS, whatever, to shut it off at, super low voltage, 10 volts, whatever it is. And they shut off 100%. So we get here, it's, 0 degrees, whatever, maybe a little warmer. Get here, batteries don't work. Okay, batteries don't work. What's that mean? Well, then, inverters don't work. All right, well, that sucks. So my little switch thing came into play. So boom, hit the switch, turn on the generator. I have lights, all that stuff. Start the fire, warm things up. I'm like, oh, maybe the batteries are just, too cold. I got to wait till they get a little warmer and then they'll accept a charge. Well, the problem is they went so low, they go into this mode where they kind of go sleep, and you have to hit them. You have to unplug everything or turn off battery switch or whatever. And then you have to hit them with 12 volts, from another battery just to kind of wake them up. Luckily, I had another battery here that I did that with, or you could probably use a dummy charger. If you had an old school battery charger that's not a smart charger or whatever, you could hit it with that to get 12 volts into it. That being said, hopefully this next winter, I'll have a door on the front of that compartment there under the stairs, and everything's going to be kind of insulated and done. So I'm interested to see if that helps, and it'll keep things running while we're gone. So it's just kind of trial and error. So we're not here full time. We leave. I want to run certain things in the cabin, but I don't want to leave too much stuff on. So most of the time when we leave, I'll shut off the 2 main inverters. That runs pretty much the whole cabin. So that small inverter in the center, I have that running all my internet stuff, which is kind of complex. I might go through that in a different video. So we use Starlink. So we're lucky enough that Starlink started working in Alaska. So the Starlink I got an adapter for, and I got it so it runs off 12 volts. So I don't have to run that through AC anymore. That's strictly 12 volts and go straight to the battery. So I don't need an inverter for that to work. But then my internet stuff and my security cameras, that's all Unify stuff. And like I said, I'll go through that in a different video if you guys are interested. That runs off the smaller inverter. So that's my PoE switcher, and then my gateway or whatever they call it to run that. So those are the things that we leave on if we're going to be on for a long time. So that way I can have security, see all my cameras, and then also, if I need to remote into the Victron stuff, I can do that through having the Starlink on. So not to get too techy, but maybe some of you tech guys might really like this. I took it a step further. I wanted to be able to also shut everything off remotely. That way, if I'm monitoring and I see, hey, the batteries are getting kind of low, I don't want any draw whatsoever to be on this cabin. So I started thinking, how can I do that? You got to have some way to remote into it, and that's either going to be internet or something cellular. My 12-volt background in mobile audio for cars and boats, we install security systems that have a part that come with them that's called a drone, and that's usually, and you guys might have something like this on your car. It's basically so you can start your car from your phone if you wanted to, or unlock your car from your phone. So that's all 12 volt. So I was like, hey, ding, 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 let's use one of those. So I installed one of those, a security system that has a drone built into it. And they have outputs out of them that can be like a little relay, like a latching relay. It'll turn things on or off. I took 2 of those latching relays, and I have one of them that latches the relay for the Starlink, which is 12 volts. So when I send a command from my phone, it will tell the relay to turn on, and it'll turn on the Starlink. I then also have the secondary output on a relay. The small inverter has a little jumper cable on it that when you connect this wire, it turns it on and off. So you can do remote turn on and off. So that relay will make it so that it'll turn on that inverter. So here's the situation. We leave. We turn off the 2 big inverters. We leave the small inverter on, and we leave the Starlink on. Okay. A month goes by. Oh man, there hasn't been any sun. The batteries are down to 30%. I need to shut everything off. Get on my phone, bing, bing, bing. I can shut off the Starlink, and I can shut off the internet and security cameras. And then the only draw that's going to be on my batteries is just a milliamp style draw that's going to be for the 12 volt for the alarm system type thing that I put in the drone that I'm using. When I say drone, I don't mean like fly around drone. I mean, that's the name of this thing. It's called Drone. It's just an app for your phone that gives you the control, which that's a very, very, very small amount of draw. So then after that, let's say I want to, I wait 7 more days. I see that it's been sunny up in Alaska, on my weather app or something. Like, hey, I'll turn that stuff on. Boom, hit my app, turn on the Starlink, turn on my cameras and internet stuff. Boom, and I have full access. Now, once that's on, I have full access to internet here. So the bigger inverters, since I have internet, the bigger inverters can be controlled through a portal online. So I can go into that portal and I can turn on the bigger inverters if the internet's on. So that way I could turn on the inverters, turn on lights, turn on the fridge, whatever I need to do on our way into town. Down the road, I'd like to maybe figure out a way to take it even a step further and have some kind of heaters or things like that can turn on. I'm kind of leery of that. I don't like turning heaters on if I'm not here or anything like that. So that one is still up in the air. However, it is nice, like in the wintertime, if I did want to turn on some lights, a lot of times we'll get here and it'll be pitch black. It could be stormy or something like that. And when we're trying to come across the lake, sometimes it's hard to see where you're going. But, if you have the lights on in the cabin, that'll help you kind of navigate where you're going to be. The other thing I should mention is once I turned on the larger inverters, I have some of the outputs of them tied into the main. I have a little switch in there. It's it's also made by Victron. It's like a 200 amp switch. It's like a major relay type thing that all my 12 volt goes through. So all the 12 volt lighting and 12 volt little outlets that are throughout the cabin or whatever, I could turn on all those little 12 volt things from getting into the larger inverter portal online, or I can do it, all from the touchscreen or whatever. So I've probably thoroughly confused a lot of you. A lot of you might be intrigued, but that's what I did. And it works. I like it. So that's what matters. It cost a ton of money, probably overspent, but I like it. So that's what I did. Anyway, if you're thoroughly bored, I'm sorry. Maybe you tuned out, maybe you didn't. But if you want to, hang out, I usually got a lot of fun stuff. If you're into this type of stuff, off-grid, inverters, batteries, cars, adventures, RVs, I like to do a little bit of everything. So if you want to like, subscribe, that'd be sweet. If not, it was good hanging out with you. See you next time.